about to go like blast off.
3, 2, 1, blast off! This is Two Girls, One Ghost.
Oh yeah, two girls, one ghost. And we are your ghostesses. That is Corinne.
Hello.
I am Sabrina, and I've been doing the New York Times crossword puzzle lately, but I was really excited because the mini today, one of the words was so applicable to what I'm covering today.
Oh, what was it? Are you gonna give us the clue?
Yeah, I can give you the clue because you kind of already know.
I know. And people on Patreon will know because that's one of the things if you join Patreon, you get either a sneak peek or a hint or just sometimes fully told the topic, what we're covering.
I feel like when the hints are given, they are so vague that I have the Excel with all the answers, but I don't even know how to guess them. It's like a very difficult scavenger hunt.
Yeah. Well, sometimes I just try to make them super because I'm everybody here is such an expert on the paranormal, and so I'm like, people are gonna know, people are gonna know. We'll get more specific.
Yeah, I can just give a little teaser right now.
Great.
The clue was what pirates wear over their eye, and it was patch. And the clue for tonight or today, whenever you're listening, is pirate.
Pirate.
Arg, arg, arg,
Arg.
arg.
We got that ill-gotten booty.
Yes,
Well, suddenly I was Scottish there. I don't know what
it
happened.
was. Well, maybe it's a
Ill-gotten booty.
Scottish pirate. Why
Yeah.
not?
Why not? This is I feel like I wouldn't have do I know that there are pirates involved here? I'm not sure I did.
Yes, 100%.
I know we have recently talked about this place. This is just such a great example of we remember nothing. Because I'm like, I have no clue what you're even referencing. And I know we talked about this recently, the thing that you will be doing. And
Mhm.
yet I have no idea. I can't remember any of it.
That's okay. Well, that's even better because then you'll be surprised for the story because it is a good one.
Perfect.
Not to
I
toot
love
my
it.
own horn, but I mean, I can't actually. There's no reason to toot my own horn because I did not write the story. I didn't create it. I literally found it online. Actually, I found it
You
because of a
researched it.
listener. I
Yes.
researched it. I can take zero credit here.
Honestly, some of the most fascinating topics. Sorry also that I'm like so nasally today, but my allergy season is wrecking me.
Upon us.
I feel like some of the wildest cases and some of the most fun cases we get is through word of mouth too. Because, Google can only take us so far. And I love when people are like, have you heard this or have you heard of that? And then it's some obscure thing and we're like, no, we've never heard of that. And it's not on any lists anywhere. Like you really have to dig to find those stories.
Like, unless you have the specific name of a place, it might not ever come up in a
Yeah.
general search.
Mhm.
Yeah. We have to like find the local high school, middle school kids and be like, hey, what's the haunted place around your neighborhood?
Yeah. Where are you guys going to make out and smoke weed? We want to go bring our EMF reader, our $15 EMF reader.
Did you ever go to a haunted place to make out with someone?
No, but I just feel like that's such a teen movie trope, where they like go into the
Yeah.
woods and they go at the old abandoned. Like that's the start of all of the classic horror movies, right? Where like there's two kids making out on the side of the road, pulled off
Yeah.
on like the deserted dirt
Up on the like
gravel
the
driveway.
overlook.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. But no, I mean, no. I kept my making out to just a minimal amount.
I did not. I was
Not
big.
often.
I made out a lot. There was one time I was I feel like I'm just okay. Anyway, I was making out with one guy in
Were you about to tell us his name? Is that why you were like, "Why am I
no,
doing this?"
I was
Was
about
it
to
your
like
one boyfriend that what's his name? Linguini?
Linguini.
Wait, what's his name?
Guido was my very first
Oh, Guido.
boyfriend. And I did not make out with him. I was in 6th grade. We never even talked. I was making out with a guy in his car at a park, and a police officer came and asked for our IDs. He was
What? That's
18.
scary.
I think I was 16, so I didn't have an ID.
Oh my gosh, was your heart pounding? You were literally pulled over by a cop for making out.
Yeah. I mean, granted,
Wow,
we were parked, but yeah, we got.
you got. Did you make out again after that, or were you too scared? You're like, "This is such a high risk relationship. I need to be a little better, a little more goody two shoes here."
I did make out with him again, but we don't have enough time to talk about the damage that that relationship did to me. So, we'll have to start a new podcast and talk about our past relationships and how fucked they
Called
were.
Traumatized.
I
A new
really
podcast brought to you by 2 Girls, 1
I
Ghost.
I think the last episode we recorded, I came up with a name for a podcast called, like, The Drama and Trauma of Family, that like,
Mhm.
something like that, and I was like, "That's actually a really good podcast," and it could just be trauma and drama, and we can talk
Talking
about
through
all
it.
of our traumas and the family drama or even,
It's
like,
group
friend
therapy.
drama. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I love when podcasts I know there are quite a few out there that are like gossip column podcasts where they'll find stories posted usually I think on Reddit and different forums like that, where you just get to hear all of the gossip of someone else's life without any of the identifying factors, which I like because I don't like drama in my own life. And if I hear about drama happening to someone else, there's a little bit of guilt for me, like, listening in and hearing about what's happening, but if I don't know the people, I'm like, "Ooh, this is so good," like, I'm so
Normal
into it.
gossip.
Yes,
The
yes,
podcast Normal
some
Gossip. It is
oh,
so good. We've talked about
oh,
this.
have we?
Yeah, remember
I
I
mean,
was like, "We should
there's so
do
many.
a crossover with them." They,
We'll gossip
have
about ghosts.
yeah, ghosts are dramatic, some of them.
Leia's like, "Don't you dare" you heard her scream, she's like, "Don't say anything mean about me, mom."
I would never
Did you
talk
ever
mean
have the
about you.
experience when you were younger where your mo this is something my mom did, and only probably a few times that I actually caught her, and I was so mad at her. And now that I'm older, I'm like, okay, I understand. But she would, it wasn't talking shit, but she would like confide in friends and relatives about like having me as a daughter, the hardships that I brought going through puberty. And she'd be like, yeah, she's doing this and she's doing that. I'd be like, stop talking about me. And I'd be like this rage demon child, like screaming,
And that
crying.
is why she needed to talk to people about you.
Yes. So before I was like, "What a betrayal. How dare you tell what's happening in our home to someone else?" Then I'm like, "Well, who she
She
needs
needs
to
to talk to
confide in
someone.
someone."
Yeah.
So maybe I should be grateful that she was calling my grandma and not just blasting it to everybody at the grocery store. I was like, "No, get my name out of your mouth." I was really hormonal.
As you know, we've all gone through that phase. But yeah, I imagine that when we have kids, we will 100% talk to each other about what our kids are
Oh,
doing.
we'll start a podcast about we'll just air out all of our no,
I'm
no, no, no,
excited
no. We won't do
for
that.
our segment that is going to be creepy kids, and it's going to be all about our creepy kids.
Yes. Oh my gosh. So when you were in town, we met up with Ash and Elena from Morbid and got some breakfast. But I just love hearing their stories about their kids and all the well, I say their kids because Ash is
But
basically equally involved. But I just
Elena's
love
kids,
hearing all
yeah.
of the stories just about all of the odd things that kids say and like the stories people your kids come home with too from different places that they go, like their friend's house and school and all of those things. And creepy kids are just so freaking fun. I love them.
We love creepy kids here at Two Girls and Ghosts, and I will be disappointed if my kids are not creepy.
They better see something. They better have some ability out there to feel
Something,
something, experience
please.
something. This is I'm like very bothered right now because there was totally something I was supposed to be telling you, some sort of ghost story, and I cannot remember it. But that's okay. It'll come to me eventually.
Okay, well, I'll tell you something really exciting and non-ghost story. I just got a Wii, and I have been playing
Oh,
Wii bowling so much. It is my instead of being on my phone, like, trying to, like, do something brainless, I get up and I play Wii bowling.
You could have given me 1,000 guesses, and I would never have guessed that you bought a Wii and are joining me bowling. Where did this come from? How did this idea populate into your head?
So, when I was back at home, I saw the Wii setup and I was like, "You know what? Like, it would be kind of fun to just, like, have a fun activity that I can do that gets me on my feet and is interactive, like, I can play with other people, you know?" And I asked my mom if I could take the Wii, and she goes, "No, I use it sometimes." And I was like, "When? When do you use it?" And she goes, "Just sometimes." And I was like,
Well, now she's gonna start
"Okay."
using it.
And she doesn't, and my brother was like, "Mom, you don't use it." And she goes, "I like to play with my friends." And I was like, "You are having your friends over?" I think she means her boyfriends, 'cause yeah,
That makes sense. Yes. I was
yeah.
like, "Wait, all of her friends have Wiis?" Because I was for a second, I was getting confused. So Wiis, you can't also saying Wiis sounds weird coming out of my mouth if I say it too many times. So when you use this contraption, you only play with the people in your own room, right? It's not like a headset you connect and can bowl with other people. It's not like a PlayStation
As
game,
far as I
right?
know, I do think there is something called We Connect, but I don't
Mm,
I don't have that, and I don't have interest in that. I like
just Wii bowling.
Yes, and I'm so good at it. Wii Sports all the way, and then I wanna get Mario Kart and play that too.
Did you see the new Mario movie?
No, but I've heard it's good.
It is good. It's just like a good. I mean, people can't. You can't go in and say it's bad because it's just. What were you expecting going into a movie like this if you come out and say that was bad? I thought it was great. Would I buy the movie, rent the movie? Probably not. But I regret going and seeing it? Definitely not. It was great. It like called back to all of the characters that we had growing up, playing Mario Kart and playing all of those games. And there was a moment I was so excited, and then I deflated a little bit because I realized it wasn't going any further. Where Luigi goes into what was Luigi's Haunted Mansion, that game, and he's in the mansion. He
Oh,
just kind of like tumbles into the mansion. He's hello, hello, and then he leaves. And I was like, no, we're not gonna get to see all the ghosts and go through all of Luigi's
well,
haunted mansion. But it was
that's
a
the
little
next
breadcrumb.
movie.
Yeah, it was a clue for all of us who loved that game. Which I played that so many times. I beat it multiple times.
Wow.
It was a fun game when I was
Congrats.
8. Thank you. Yeah,
So now I'm a gamer is basically what I'm saying.
you're in your gamer era. This you can start live streaming. You can be a whoa. Wow, I'm stumbling because I'm just jazzed
In
about your new business
shock.
endeavor, your hobby that I'm now making less fun for you because I'm turning it into a business. Like,
The
oh,
best
live
thing
stream
to
it.
do is to be able to turn your hobbies into a business, because then like this, Corinne, you and I talking to each other about something
Yes,
that we love to talk about is a business for us now, which is the
I
coolest
know.
freaking thing, and it feels so surreal. Like, the fact that we just did 2 live
Yeah,
shows and are hoping to do more, and it's almost 6 years of doing this
isn't
is
that wild?
yeah.
It's also I feel like we're very lucky in that, and I'll speak for myself here. My brain hasn't registered that this is my job yet. So it still feels
No.
very fun. Like everything about it is awesome and I want to do it and I would never not do it and I enjoy doing like literally every aspect of it. And I was just thinking back to there were some studies done and experiments where kids would it was basically like if you pay someone to do the work that they enjoy doing, does it become less enjoyable? And there was a study done with these kids where they were asked to draw and they all loved drawing. And then when they were asked, basically commissioned to draw pieces where it was now work, they were given like specific instructions of what to draw, it became less fun and they became suddenly uninterested in it. And so I kind of always had that study in the back of my mind like, is this ever going to feel like that? And it just hasn't. And it's been 6 years. So I feel like
Yeah.
it won't ever. Like, it
I
just is equally awesome every day.
I also think the difference is no one's asking us to do
That's true.
this.
Yeah. It's completely self-motivated.
Yeah.
In fact,
Oh,
some people in our reviews are asking us to not
so
do this.
stop. Please stop talking. I
Oh,
will
you're
not be
right, Sabrina.
silenced.
It feels like we're doing something wrong. It's a little more thrilling, right?
It is. Okay.
Should we get into the spooky business?
Yes, absolutely. Do you wanna hear more about pirates?
I do. Remind me
Okay.
why I know these pirates.
You will be reminded very shortly.
Okay.
So, Corinne, I have a question for you. This
Yes.
is how I will start my story.
Okay.
If you were not going to marry Brian, and if you were not going to marry Bigfoot, who would you marry next?
Harry Styles.
Okay, in the paranormal realm.
Andrew Ranson.
There you go. Ding, 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 ding. I wrote, if you said Andrew, you are correct. And because you said that, I know how much you love pirates and their booty. Um,
Oh my gosh.
this story has pirates, it has booty, butt booty, and treasure booty. It doesn't really have butt booty specifically, but there are humans, and that means that there are butts. So, therefore,
There we go.
butts butt booty exists. It also, Corinne, has unreliable characters, which I know how much you like,
Yes, I do
and
love a good story with an unreliable narrator.
yes, you
My
do.
favorite books, my favorite movies.
Yep. Well, exactly. So you will love the story. It also has a lot of mystery. This is the story of Dungeon Rock in Lynn, Massachusetts. And I have to shout out Melanie, who sent us a personal encounter from this place because before that, I had never heard of this. I knew nothing of its existence. And so thank you, Melanie. We read Melanie's email back on Encounters 178, which is the one that you and I were hilarious in. It was the one where we were sitting on the couch with Ben in your apartment.
When we get together, we kind of forget that we're recording normal. I feel like that just in general, but it's a little bit harder when we are recording over the internet because there's always just the slightest amount of lag, and so we can't be as
We're not as
loose
like yes
with
and
our yes, yeah.
yes. Okay. This story begins around the 1840s, which if you remember anything, which we Corinne you and I never do, but this is also the height of spiritualism. All over the world, people were seeking contact with the other side through a whole plethora of manners. And I was doing research, and apparently there were 8 million followers of spiritualism in the United States and Europe, which I didn't realize it was that widespread. I guess it kind of makes sense.
Yeah. Mhm.
And a whole sect of spiritualists found their way to the town of Lynn, Massachusetts. Lynn, Massachusetts is considered to be in Boston's North Shore. I'm sure, Corinne, you can speak to the area much better than I can. But Lynn is the largest city in Essex County, Massachusetts, and sits on the Atlantic Ocean just 30 minutes from where you live.
I'm also realizing because I just went onto the map because I was like, "How do I not know about this place?" And I'm realizing I drive by it all the time, and also Walden Pond, I think is one of the places that people go to, like, the beach or just to walk the trails. I think that's a really popular spot. So, there's a lot of people, I guess myself included, that probably go right by this and spend time next to it and have no idea of the hauntings.
I mean, I feel like that happens all the time. The amount of places that we are in or go past and have
Mhm.
no idea it's haunted. Like you staying at the Congress Hotel after I even told you it was haunted.
Sometimes our memories protect us either from to keep us safe or just because sometimes we're on our in our stupid era and that's where I am right now. Ask me questions about gardening, I'll know the answer, but anything about anything else, no. Don't actually ask
Well,
me anything.
okay, this is episode 222, which means that you and I have probably done research on over 200 places.
Definitely more than that, because think of how many places we've done research on and then changed our mind and done something else.
Right.
instead for that episode. Oh my gosh, so many.
It's just that's a lot. That's a lot on top of every day having to navigate life. It's
I think
difficult.
if all stressors were eliminated in life, I'd be able to remember everything. But right now our brains are kind of just like keeping us just moving, getting to the next day.
Yeah. I don't think I would remember everything no matter what. But you know what? That's fine. I'm happy with my life. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. I am. I really am. I'm convincing myself. I am. am in a much better
Speak it
place
till you
in
feel
my
it.
life. Well, yeah, and I
Mhm.
also there was a point probably 6 months ago where I would say like I was really really in a low place, but I have done a lot of work since then, a lot of soul searching, a lot of like the we, for example. Like I want to reconnect with my inner child and I'm just doing things that bring me joy. And
And now
so
you wake up and you go Wii bowling, which I just love. I there's this trend on TikTok where people are like, "Here's a life in my morning." That wasn't English, but basically they're just like, "Here's my
day in the
morning
life, yeah.
routine, and here's what you need to do to be a successful this or whatever." And then I wake up at 4 a.m. and then I journal and then I meditate and then I drink my coffee and then I make a smoothie and then I pick my berries and they have like this big thing that just feels so intimidating, and I'm just like, "Oh my god, I don't think I could ever be this person. I don't think I can ever get here and have that motivation." And that doesn't seem fun to me either. And I love the reverse of that, where you're like, my morning routine is I get up and I start bowling on my Wii,
I'm
and I
gonna
have
make
so much fun doing it.
I'm gonna make a my morning routine and I will do exactly
Please
wait,
do, because it's not a joke. It will feel like a joke, I think, when people watch it, but it's real and it's good,
wait,
and
do
people
you have
should
your
start doing
phone?
stuff like that.
Can you
Yes.
text me right now so that
Okay, I
after this
will.
I have your text and I will be reminded to do it?
1000%.
I'm so excited for this. It truly is. It's now a part of my everyday. All right. I guess, Corinne, can you speak to Lynn, Massachusetts a little bit more? Because I imagine you've been there.
Sure. Lynn is a beachside town. There are different neighborhoods in Lynn, and so, honestly, I've only really driven through Lynn or driven mostly by the coast. They have, the Christmas tree shops there. They have,
Oh,
I guess, just a lot of access to the water and the ocean. They have this beautiful walkway along the ocean that's a wonderful path that people are constantly picnicking on and biking and walking their dogs. And that's really lovely. And Lynn is also extremely close to Salem and Marblehead. So you, Sabrina, have also been through Lynn multiple times, but just the driving route, we haven't stopped.
yeah. But it is
Yeah.
yes.
It's a bigger town though. There's a larger population of people that live in Lynn.
Yeah, it's the largest city in Essex County. So,
Yep.
yeah,
North Shore of
large.
Massachusetts. I think it primarily has a lot more condos as well compared to a lot of the other towns. So there's more opportunity for people to find a place there.
Yeah. I love I mean, just the coastal towns of Massachusetts are absolutely beautiful. And, and
Mhm.
I think I've talked about this on the podcast, but Marblehead is like is it has a piece of my soul. Like, I feel like if we talk about shadow work and pieces of our souls fracturing off, I believe there is a part of my soul that is literally in Marblehead, and I am more complete when I am there.
I love that. I mean, let's remember your astrocartography chart. It literally had you in this area as well for
Yeah.
being happy and supported. So, and even when we were in Portsmouth, we should look back on that chart because it probably, if it, because you felt good in Portsmouth too. Maybe not as much as you felt spending all that time in Marblehead, but I bet the line probably goes like straight through the two.
I bet. Yeah. We'll, go back and look because I don't remember any of my other lines. There's so many lines on those
I
charts.
know.
Okay, so a little bit more, information on Lynn, and, of course, there's so much more history that we are not going to cover right now, but as with a lot of the US or America, it was originally inhabited by native tribes until the English colonization in the 1600s. And when the area was colonized, the English brought over disease and greed. So there was a bout of smallpox and then the really deadly and bloody King Philip's War. Basically, by 1686, the colonists had fully pushed the natives out of their land. Um, that's basically all to set the stage. Lynn has a lot of history, which involves bloodshed, trauma, pain, and greed, which helps us understand the kind of energy that may be left behind and stain the land to this day, which means ghosts.
Ghosts,
Ghosts.
hauntings. Why we've gathered here today.
Yes. Oh, very spooky. I kind of like. What if we just had spoke like that the entire time?
I think we'd lose people pretty quick.
There is so much history that we could cover regarding Lynn. I kind of like that.
Honestly, maybe that's our sleep version of the podcast. We just talk like this. And everyone
It
just
begins
is lulled off into their slumber, listening to ghost stories spoken in this weirdly
strange.
assertive yet soothing tone.
Not sure if it's, yeah, not
Kind of
sure
feels like
where it comes from, but yes.
Severus Snape a little bit. I feel like it's
I
inspired by Snape.
and honestly, Alan Rickman might be part of my soul as well, equivalent to Marblehead.
Hmm.
So, RIP, my friend who doesn't know me. I very much believe he and I are connected. Okay, I will not speak like that, but I will say this story of Dungeon Rock begins in 1852. Well, it begins way before that, but I'll get to that. So basically, where it begins for us in the sake of history is in the late 1840s. A man named Hiram Marble was an active spiritualist, and he and the spiritual group he was in met on a frequent basis and would hold seances and try to make contact with the other side on a very frequent basis. Like this was their life. They had mediums among them. They would hold seances. They, would do like the table knocking and they basically used any form of contact that they could. I do
Hmm.
believe seances was kind of like the primary way of contacting the spirits.
Yeah,
But according to Hiram, so we just experienced some great technical difficulties, but we're back.
sorry. It was me.
I, It was the ghost. I always think of now when we had Em and Christine on our show from And That's Why We Drink.
And I'm
I
kept
always think
disappearing.
of no, I think of the time that Christine fell asleep.
Oh, oh. And Em was just stuck there and was like, hello, Christine.
And then they come back and it says, "Good morning." And they explain that the part 2 of their episode is recorded the day
I
after because
know.
Christine had fallen asleep in the middle of recording.
Just lulled to sleep by the sound of their voice. Em is soothing. I love
I
stories
love
told by
it.
Em.
Okay, so we're back to our story.
Hmm.
So, according to Hiram, he did make contact with a spirit, the spirit of a freaking pirate.
Ooh, an eye patch wearing pirate? Probably not.
What I've gathered from my research is that Hiram made contact with this spirit during a session with a medium. The medium was suddenly overtaken by the spirit, the man named Thomas Veal. Thomas Veal revealed that he was a pirate who came to Lynn back in the 17th century. So, Thomas the pirate informs Hiram that there was treasure buried beneath the land in Lynn. And naturally, as anyone would, Hiram's interest is like super piqued. He's like,
Hmm.
treasure? What? Buried here in Lynn? So, Hiram was determined to find it and was like, I'm not going to stop until I do. And just as a little note, because I want to be grounded in some sense of reality here, I know that's usually not what we do here at Two Girls One Ghost, but we do know as for a fact that Hiram believed this, and there are records of everything that happens moving forward in this story. But one major part of the story that a lot of people question is the validity of Thomas Veal. I say that just so that you have some context, but I
Okay,
am going to completely tell you the story of Thomas Veal as if it is real.
great.
Thomas Veal is real in my mind. As the legend goes, it was 1658 in Lynn, Massachusetts. The colonists are continuing to push the native tribes out of their own land, claiming it for themselves. And one day, in late summer, an ominous ship sailed into Lynn Harbor. It was painted all black, had no flags, and no identifiable markings. Which, if you saw that sailing into your port back in the day when the attack from sea is a massive threat, I assume, and as it is said according to the internet, the people in Lynn were like, uh oh, pirates are coming to our land.
Yes,
We are in trouble.
under attack. Well, honestly, not to pull us too far off course, but when I was in Marblehead the other day, crafting in the cemetery with my friend Allison, we walked over to the fort that you and I had walked through when we were there. And there's a house set up where that was basically the fort. Because I was like, oh, whose house is that? And she was like, no, 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 that's the old fort that before America was ever established back in 1776, like for many decades, this was the building that Marblehead used to look out for the threat coming from the ocean. And so it was always there. It was always a worry of everyone who lived here. Kind of ironic that everyone came here and took everything from the native people and then were suddenly super paranoid that someone would do the same to them, telling on themselves.
It's also interesting. The other day I was driving kind of past the beach and I just saw like a massive boat out on the water. And I was like, the first thought I had was, what is that boat? And which is interesting because I would like, we have no reason to fear boats coming in or
Mm,
being in our oceans. But I was like, why did my brain go to that? And maybe it's just my imagination, but perhaps I also maybe lived in a time where that was a threat in a past life.
yeah. And I think we
I
also
don't know.
just kind of live in this age of paranoia right now with the amount of
That's true.
information sharing available on the internet and social media platforms. There's like always something like, did you see this? Did you see that? The threat's here. Now it's there. Now it's here. It's
Yeah.
scary.
Yeah. So the people of Lynn, when they see this all black ship coming into their port, are terrified. They all like run into hiding. They get the people who are, soldiers and stuff, get ready to fight these pirates who they assume are going to come off their ship and raid their land. But a raid never came. Slowly, they kind of come out of hiding and they're looking and they're like, what's going on? And they see four men, four pirates, that is, moving a large chest onto a smaller rowboat. And they row up the Saugus River, which to me, it's like, okay, these pirates are not doing what is expected of pirates. And not only that, but now they are putting a strange chest into a little rowboat.
Yeah. It's
I
awfully
feel like that is
suspicious.
very suspicious. And this whole story kind of gives me Pirates of the Caribbean vibes.
Mhm.
So, not strange or anything at all. The workers at Saugus Iron Works find a note nailed to their door. And this note had a series of requests. It asked for a supply of manacles, digging tools, chains, and some other tools. The note asked the ironworkers to collect the requested items and leave them in a secret location for these four men who just arrived at the port in a mysterious way.
In exchange for what? Are they getting paid?
Well, that's the yes, they are. Because you see that note and it's like, why in the world would these ironworkers do such a thing for pirates who they just do not know? Well, the pirates made it a very enticing situation. They said on the note, if the men gave the tools that were asked of them, they would be rewarded with a chest of silver.
Oh, okay. I can see where the motivation lies here because 'cause I'd be like, "Okay, well, I don't know who these people are, but It's worth a risk gathering these items if I actually get a chest of silver in return. If not, I'll feel jaded and I'll never trust anyone again. But
But it's worth the
just try
risk.
it once. Yeah.
And you know what? These pirates had already defied stereotypes. They didn't come in and attack. They're not asking for like guns and things. They're asking for tools. These men at the iron factory, ironworks, decided to put in an order for the tools and they brought them to the spot where the exchange was to happen and received their silver. It took place, very cordially. It was a good business deal. No one tricked anyone. And the place is now known as Pirates Glen, the spot where the exchange happened. And unfortunately, while it sounds very peaceful right then and there, and despite the pirates coming and creating fair commerce in the town, the British soldiers got greedy. Or I guess I shouldn't say got greedy because they've, from the get
Already
go,
were.
have been
Yes.
very greedy. But so they decide, you know what? These pirates have silver and we want it for our own. So instead of being peaceful in return, we are going to go raid the pirates' camp. So they go out into the woods and they raid the camp because they assume there's more treasure to be found. They caught 3 of the 4 pirates and hung them. But the 4th man, a man by the name of Thomas Veal, escaped into the forest with the
I'm
silver.
picturing him running like Jack Sparrow too. Just kind of
Yes,
his
holding
hips
this heavy
first, his
chest.
head behind him, holding the heavy chest, a little drunk, arms splayed, claws out.
Yes,
Ah!
claws out. Yeah, and he ran and ran and was seeking shelter and safety from these soldiers who had kidnapped and killed his 3 friends. And that is when he found a cave. So he ran inside this cave with his treasure and decided to hide there. And, there are a lot of reasons that people don't believe this part of the story. But the one part that I don't believe is this because apparently, after hiding in the cave for a little while, he slowly integrated himself into the Lynn society and started doing like odd jobs. And I just have a hard time believing that because if these soldiers went and attacked the pirate camp because they wanted the silver and found 3 of the 4 men and no silver, I don't believe that they would just let Thomas Veal integrate himself into society and not kidnap him and find his money,
And
his
how does
silver, his
he
treasure.
escape with a big chest of silver too? That would be extremely heavy.
Well, the one thing that we don't know is how much silver, what it was in. We don't really know. So, what we do know, or what we believe to know at this point, is that Thomas Veal escapes from the British soldiers and is able to exist in the Lynn Society. And he's like going into Lynn to get food and, does odd jobs to maintain a semblance of a life. But he lives in this cave. He lives there with his treasure. Sadly, in 1638, there is a massive earthquake that hits the New England area. And this is in history the largest earthquake to ever hit New England. I think it's called the New Hampshire earthquake of 1638, but it's massive. It was like magnitude 6.5 to 7 on the Richter scale, and it shook the land for 4 whole minutes.
Whoa, that's so scary.
And it's the first time anyone, these colonists, had ever experienced an earthquake. So it was
Yeah, and
horrifying.
you can only
And
imagine
the
what
aftershocks,
the structures were like too, especially not ever
yeah.
anticipating an earthquake. I'm sure they didn't have anything built structurally to withstand, especially 4 minutes of that at that magnitude.
And I think I didn't write this down, but if you look up the New Hampshire earthquake of 1638, there's a record because I guess there was one town that was having a town hall when it happened. And so they have the writing written of literally the experience as it was
Oh my
happening. And, I think back in the day, a lot of these natural disasters were believed to be acts of God, like punishing them for doing something. Um, so the quote is very God related. But what happened after this earthquake, I mean, it impacted the New England area for kind of a really long time because temperatures shifted and crops started freezing. And so there was a lot of people going hungry. That is beside the point. I just thought that was a fascinating piece of history. What is the point is that when this earthquake happened, Thomas Veal, our pirate, and his booty were in his cave. And when the earthquake started to shake the ground, the foundation of which the cave existed upon split, causing the cave to cave in.
So not only is there treasure hidden somewhere, but next to it is the skeleton of a dead pirate.
Correct.
That kind of makes me want to look for it more.
So Thomas Veal was basically buried alive, trapped in the depths of now the ground in this cave along with his treasure. So fast forward 200 years, and this is where we're back with Hiram. And Thomas makes his spirit known to the spiritualists in Lynn, specifically to Hiram Marble. And the reason why this story is sometimes not believed is because the legend of Thomas Vale wasn't written about until 100 or so years after the pirate ship arriving and him living in this cave was said to happen,
Mm-hmm.
if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So people are like, well, if Thomas really existed, if these pirates arrived ashore in Lynn back in like the 1600s, wouldn't there be record of that? Wouldn't someone have written it down? But it's also believable, and this is me trying to convince myself that this is a real story, that the records just don't exist or that they were damaged. Who knows how many fires have happened since then? Like, there are a plethora of reasons that could explain why those records don't
And too,
exist.
I feel like there were so many records that were just kept incorrectly, and it was all based on whoever the storyteller was and what they wanted to
Yeah.
portray. And so I could totally
Yep.
believe that maybe there was some embarrassment regarding what happened in
Yeah.
this story and that it was just
Mhm.
omitted or changed based on whatever
I
they were
agree.
trying to
Yeah.
further themselves.
It even still happens.
Yeah,
That is still true.
current problem, current day.
Yes. Either way, whether you believe the validity of the story of Thomas Vale or not, Hiram Marble does. And he and his spiritualist group met and carried out seances at Jesse Hutchinson's stone cottage in Lynn, and that is where they made contact with Thomas Veal. Thomas's spirit informs Hiram of the buried treasure and the cave that caved in, and Hiram is like, "Well, I know what I need to do. Find that treasure." In 1852, Hiram Marble decides to buy 5 acres of land in Lynn, Massachusetts that encompassed the land that the cave was said to have existed on. So basically, now he owns that land. It's his. And he moves his wife and kid to this new home and informs them, "We are going to dig out that cave and find the treasure."
Oh my God. I hope his children were just so full of joy and excitement because I feel like that is the best thing ever. It's like we get to move to a new place and there's literally buried treasure. We're all going to go on a treasure hunt here.
Yep.
What a dream.
Yeah. It sounds like a dream. And at the time it probably was. It was a massive dream that Hiram was following. And to be as an added bonus, a lot of people were questioning the validity of spiritualism and, believed that it was fraudulent. And there were a lot of people who were fake and using it as a way to like con people into giving them money. So he was hoping that in addition to getting rich and finding this treasure, that it would help prove the validity of spiritualism. Because if he found the treasure based on communications with this deceased pirate, it proves that a ghost directed him there. So he goes on this journey and starts to dig out the cave. But first, I wanted to show you a photo of Hiram outside of his home
Okay.
because I just think old photos are really beautiful.
Oh, how cool.
Isn't it pretty?
It's so pretty. It kind of already
Also,
looks
like, why don't they make
paranormal.
windows like that anymore?
What do you mean?
Like, those windows are so expensive to like
Oh,
now
yeah.
the affordable windows are just like cheap.
Yeah, I mean, you're looking at like the 12 pane typical
Yeah.
colonial window. And now they are quite expensive. And one of the things that I understand why they've changed it, but it does kind of take away a little bit from it, in my opinion, is now they put, if you get a window like that with the paneling, oftentimes they'll put the wood inside of the glass, basically, like in between the windows,
Mm.
the outer and the interior, so that when you're cleaning, it's easier because you don't have to clean in between every single pane because the dust and everything is such a
Oh,
pain.
interesting.
But there's something so beautiful about these.
I
My
know.
parents have these in their house.
I think I decided as of recently that my style of home that I would really like is not necessarily Victorian, but Tudor.
Oh, you're a Tudor house girl.
I'm a Tudor
Well,
girl.
I think if you live in California, I think there's quite a few Tudors out there.
There are a
Yeah.
couple. Not a lot, but there is some. More than Victorian, I will say. Okay. So Hiram, you can see this home. It's 5 acres of land. Hiram spent his entire life savings on this property. That is how much faith he had in this contact with Thomas Veal's ghost. He is like, I'm going to spend every single cent to own this land because it's going to be worth it. I'm going to find the treasure and all the money it's going to be more than all the money I'm spending. He even started to sell bonds to investors and promised to share a profit of the treasure once they found it. And what I really appreciate about Hiram is he had really good intentions as well. He basically was like, once I find this treasure and carve out this cave, I want this land to become a public park, an
That's so
area where
sweet.
people can come to gather.
Yeah, that's lovely.
Yeah.
Well, he
So
succeeded now
Hiram and
knowing what it is today.
yes, he did. So Hiram employs his son, Edwin, to help dig this cave. Either he employs him or Edwin is also excited, like you were saying. Like Edwin's like, yes, I'm all in too. Yeah, Dad, let's go find some treasure. And so Hiram and Edwin and the spiritualist group continue to communicate with Thomas Veal. Thomas has like very specific instructions on where to dig, which way to continue, going right or left or straight, etc. And Hiram and Edwin spend day after day doing the grueling physical labor that is required to dig out a fallen cave. With each day that passed, they were becoming more aware of the fact they had not found the treasure yet. By 1863, the tunnel was 135 feet long and 7 feet wide and the height of an average person.
Okay.
So, like, it's pretty
This is a
massive.
giant tube. Yes, this cave is
And
big.
they don't have modern day technology. They're not like using drills and stuff. It is shovels. They are shoveling rock, dirt, the
And the
ground.
thing, it's already caved in once, so who's to say that it's safe to be in there at all? It could be so
Well,
unsteady. That's so scary.
and the opening to the tunnel that they had created, I think it had collapsed a couple of times,
Oh
like while
my
they were doing it.
god.
Luckily, never when they were in it. But so the opening of the tunnel was created to the immediate right of what Thomas had said was the original entrance to the cave. So Marble was planning to dig a tunnel parallel to what the cave had been and then turn left and dig into the cave from the side. For some reason, Marble did not do this and instead veered the tunnel away from the opposite direction of the cave, which is something that the ghosts apparently told him to do.
Hmm.
And if you remember from our story, from Melanie's
Hmm.
story, the ghosts there are known to mislead and misdirect
Yes.
people.
Yes. Suddenly you're
Yes.
going left, but then they tell you to go right, but then actually you were supposed to go the way that you were originally going, but now they're directing you north. Yes. It's very
I
confusing.
mean, it is possible that while in the cave, Thomas like buried the treasure in a different location. Like he moved, like he dug something, you know,
Oh, like while he was
that it
trapped in the
wasn't.
cave, like he didn't die right
No,
away upon the earthquake.
no, I mean before the cave caved in. Like he was living in the cave for a while.
Oh,
It's very possible he got tools and dug towards the left or right of the cave and put it somewhere that technically wasn't a part of the cave.
or being in the cave was just a misdirection entirely, and it's nowhere near the cave. Or it's just 10 feet outside of the cave where no one's digging.
Well, so this is what I'm saying. So like yeah, so he was digging in a direction opposite of the cave, which is why people were confused, but that's what the ghost
Oh,
told him to do.
okay. I thought you were talking about in the cave, but just a different section of the cave. But the
No, no,
ghost
no. Like
said, "Get out of the cave and dig over here in this part of the land."
yeah,
Got it. Got it.
yes. But like maybe you need to have access kind of to the cave in order to have gotten to that original part. I don't know. But anyway, Hiram says that he received the following message from the ghost of Thomas Veal. Again, this is through a medium, but this is the quote. My dear Charge, you solicit me or Captain Harris to advise you as to what to do next. As to the course, you are in the right direction at present. You have one more curve to make before you take the course that leads you to the cave. We have a reason for keeping you from entering the cave at once. Moses was by the Lord kept 40 years in a circuitous route, ere he had sight of that land which flowed with milk and honey. God had his purpose in doing so. Notwithstanding, he might have led Moses into the promise in a very few days from the start. But no, God wanted to develop a truth, and no faster than he, minds of the people were prepared to receive it. Cheer up, Marble. We are with you and doing all we can. Your guide, Tom Veal. Two things about this. The first, if Tom Veal was a pirate, he's speaking very colonial.
It's pretty preachy, but
And he believes in God, which also doesn't feel very pirate. Like he has the same religious belief as is insinuated by this
yeah,
quote
and he was also
that
living
the
at a
colonists would
time
have.
when all of the colonists were primarily Puritans. But I don't know. I guess there's different people, different areas, different beliefs.
Yeah. Anyway, so it kind of makes me doubt a little bit the validity of Tom Miss Veal. But the marbles continue to dig. And over time, they're starting to feel a little bit defeated. They're completely out of money. They thought it would be much easier to find this treasure. And they're basically like, while we continue to dig, we need to find some way to bring in money. And so they decide to offer tours of the cave for a small fee. And it became known as Dungeon Rock. Um, there's a little bit of discrepancy of terms of like when it was named Dungeon Rock and why. Some people say it's because it like trapped the pirate, or maybe there's a formation of a rock. I do not know. But it is called Dungeon Rock and is still known as Dungeon Rock. And these tours were meant to keep the Marble family afloat until they discovered the treasure. Unfortunately, Hiram continued to search for the treasure until his dying day. He died empty handed on November 10th, 1868, at the age of 65. His son, Edwin, was so determined to continue his father's search because they had come so far and he was not ready to give up. So, after his father passed away, he continued to dig and dig and dig for another 12 years until
Wow.
he too died without ever discovering the treasure.
Which does make you think that they were truly experiencing interactions with paranormal beings, whether it be the
Oh,
original
absolutely.
person or just other ghosts in the area. Because why would you have that much dedication towards digging and have no reward, like no nothing that makes you feel like you're getting closer
Yeah.
physically? It's only what you're being told by the spirits, how the spirits are directing you. So it does
Yeah.
make me believe that the ghosts were absolutely interfering there.
Yeah. I mean, it's a combination of things that could be possible. One, they are communicating with the spirits and they are misleading them. Two, the medium who was saying or speaking on behalf of Thomas Veal was pulling their legs and just like messing with them and leading them. If that's the case, though, I feel like at some point the medium would be like, I'm just messing with you guys. Like, don't do this anymore. Or also on the other opposite hand, like maybe it got so carried away that he was like, it's too late. I can't
Right.
tell them.
You can't go backwards.
Yeah.
Or you just convince yourself of these things. You're like, well,
Yeah.
maybe they are on something. Maybe I can communicate with this person. Maybe, it's hard. Our brains are
Yeah.
powerful.
They are. So sadly, Edwin dies, but on his deathbed in 1880, he makes one request. He requests that he be buried at Dungeon Rock. And he was. So if you visit the area today, you may see the spot Edwin was buried. There's no tombstone, but at the top of a set of stairs beginning next to the old cave hole stands a large pink piece of rock, and that is the marker for his burial ground, which I think is really fascinating. Um, After Edwin died, there was no family to inherit the land, so the city of Lynn purchased it and turned it into a public park, just like Hiram had always desired, which makes me happy because at least one of his dreams came true. To this day, no one has found the treasure, or that's at least what we've been told. I feel like we've talked about this before with treasure, of finding treasure that exists on public land, or like finding treasure in general. Like you wouldn't have the right to owning it right away.
No. I mean, I feel like that's half of the show Pawn Stars. It's like, I found this thing through this other person who my great grandmother knew, and it's just like hidden and passed down for so long until it's you really don't know how someone got in possession of something because probably it was stolen or you weren't really supposed to have it or there's something wrong with you specifically having it and not someone else.
Yeah. I do wonder though, like, yes, there are metal detectors, but there has to be more technology into analyzing different levels of the ground and like finding objects.
I think it's
Like I
just so
know there's
expensive.
the
It's just resources.
yeah,
Like you can do anything you want if you have the money.
that's
I
true.
think it's money based.
It's also kind of like I don't know how people feel about this, but I feel like it would be so smart to have a full body scan done every single year. And it's expensive. And also, I feel like there's a weird conspiracy with it where like the medical industry doesn't want that because then they would lose money if people are catching things too early.
Well, and then there's also things with just like with our medical devices and like you're not supposed to have certain things done to a certain like as frequently. Like there could be still harm from certain rays and radiations and things that we do use to treat other things. It's so convoluted. But one of the things that I really do like is with natural medicine, and we've said this before, we're not full like don't take medicine. Like
I'd take
there's
lots.
plenty of medicine being ingested by us that were prescribed by doctors and sold in pharmacies. However, I do really like that oftentimes when there are particular ailments happening that nature tries to correct itself. So like if you have a lot of this is I'm not going to like be able to describe a good example, but basically if there's a geographical location where a lot of people come in contact with poison ivy, nearby there will also be other plants that can be used to like crush up and treat poison ivy. Like it always tries to course correct.
Interesting. Anyway, no one's found the treasure, which is very sad. But they have found ghosts. So that is what we are here to talk about. Basically, visitors have had their fair share of paranormal encounters. They've seen the spirits of Thomas Veal, of Hiram Marble, and of Edwin Marble. Some hear a man screaming for help within the caves, and they believe it to be Thomas's spirit kind of reliving the moment of the earthquake and getting trapped in the cave. Um, it also could be Hiram and Edwin, like asking for help to find the treasure, or perhaps, like, my theory is that maybe in their ghostly forms, they have found the treasure, and there's maybe an element of, okay. Well, first of all, let me back up. Melissa's email to us, she spoke of how they had a variety of encounters with who they believe to be other visitors in human visitors in the park area. But people were just a little bit off, and they kept giving strange directions to Melissa and their friend.
Right, there was a confused couple, there was, like, a guy on a bike maybe.
Yeah, exactly. So it is clear that the spirits of Dungeon Rock manipulate, mimic, and mislead. So Dungeon Rock is home to the misleading, manipulative mimics. So my theory is twofold. One, that perhaps the spirits have since found the treasure in their ghostly forms, and maybe one of them wants people to find it, but another one doesn't. And
Oh,
so there is this misleading, like, one type of spirit trying to direct people towards, and then the other spirit intervenes and like leads people
right.
astray. So it is a very confusing experience for people who are in the area.
Well, all the people who've ever treasure hunted probably do want someone to find the treasure, right? To prove that their name is not associated with someone who tried to dig holes for 30 years mindlessly and appeared to
Hmm.
be a little bit what people might say like, oh, they've lost their marbles a bit. So maybe they're trying to like prove like, no, I was onto something. The treasure
Lost their
really
marbles. How apropos of the Marble
of the
family.
yes, exactly. I didn't even think of that. But I see, so that's who I was thinking of. Like they would probably, the father and son would probably want to bring people towards the treasure if they've found it. But then Hiram is probably like, get off my land, get off my space.
Do you mean
Oh,
Thomas?
wait, sorry, Thomas, the pirate,
Yeah, the
Thomas.
pirate. I mean, it's also possible that Hiram and Edwin are a little bit, like, angry because they spent so long looking for it. Like, maybe Thomas wants people to find his treasure, but Hiram and Edwin are like, "How dare you? You led us astray for so many years," or, like, just didn't really help us very clearly. Now we know what it is, and we don't want other people to have it.
Or maybe they're just as, what if the Marble family don't know that they're dead? And so they're still going and searching for it in all these different directions. And so they're unintentionally leading other people in the wrong direction because they're still following these misleads and still looking themselves in spirit form. And that maybe it's just Thomas who's orchestrating the whole thing. I don't know.
I guess we will have to go and do our own little research.
Hey, next time you're in
Um,
Boston, let's do it.
I know. I mean, this is why I really wanted to research it and understand the full story, because after we read Melissa's email, we were like, should we go? And then we just didn't have time because we had so many other plans. But now I'm like, this one's stuck in my head. So there's the misleading spirits. A lot of people have seen different entities. Some people have also seen a shadowy figure cloaked in red strolling through the forest near the cave. Um, People don't really know what this apparition could be, but it could be something from a different time. Keep in mind, okay, so this area of Dungeon Rock, it was 5 acres, right, when the Marbles owned it. Now it is part of Lynn Woods Reservation, a 2,200 acre forest with over 30 miles of trails for hiking, horseback riding, and mountain biking. So that's a lot of land. And like I said in the very beginning, there's a lot of traumatic dark history that exists on this land. So there's a lot of different types of energy and potential spirits that could be wandering the area.
Totally, totally.
So they don't all or probably aren't all connected to the treasure and Thomas and the Marble family. But the cave itself is open, apparently only in the warmer months, and you have to request access with the park rangers so that they know you're in there. So if you request access, the park rangers will open the steel door that basically prevents people from going into the cave if they don't have permission. It can be, I think it's open from like 9 a.m. to 2:30 p.m. in the winter months if you ask for access.
Do you just ask and then they give it to you, or do you have to have good reason?
I think you can ask. I think it's you can ask.
It's just for safety, for like, okay, if 3 people went in,
Yeah,
we need 3 people coming out in 30 minutes.
exactly.
Yes.
Because this cave is extremely dark and it winds for 135 feet. And kind of like I said earlier on, like they didn't dig this tunnel or cave in a straight line. It is like winding and weird. The directions change like randomly because of the way that they were directed by Thomas's spirit to dig.
That freaks me out way too much.
Yeah. It's very clearly dug by man. Like you can tell it's hand dug.
Well, and
And
too,
at the
because
very
it's winding, imagine how many shadows are cast because of the odd angles and just how many opportunities there are for some creature or entity to kind of be like peeking out from around the corner. Mm-mm.
yeah. Yeah.
I will stay on the outside of the cave. I will walk around Linwood's preservation, but I will not enter that cave.
It's also like if you look at photos of it, there are some areas that are kind of wide. Like it was said to be 7 feet wide, but then like the height is that of an average person. So there are some people who are going in there and have to like kind of bend
Hunch
down.
down, yeah.
And there are other parts that it's not 7 feet wide. So I feel like if you're claustrophobic, I do not recommend going. If you're afraid of the dark, I also don't recommend going. It's very dark, it's very wet, and at the very end of the tunnel are two pools of water, which is where the marbles stopped their dig.
Oh.
Um, it's also been it floods sometimes, like and has to be closed and people can't access it. Um, and I don't think you're allowed to bring any of your digging tools. So if you were like, "Hey, they must have been so close. Let's just like keep digging a little bit," I just don't think you will be able to. Um,
Okay, I'm
the
mapping
door
it. So Linwood's Reservation Trail. I'm just going to map it from Boston because I know people. Oh, it's like 45-ish minute drive right now from
okay.
Boston. So if anyone has any Boston plans, it's not too far. You can get there. Linwood's Reservation.
Or if you're going to Salem in October, you can make a little pit stop.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So yeah, the door to the cave can be found within the rock crevice. And if you do want to go explore, make sure you bring a flashlight and not just use your phone flashlight because we know what happens in paranormal places. Your batteries die.
Yes, it will be drained. You'll have no light. Any photos you take will disappear. You'll have no proof. No
Disappear.
evidence.
And you might disappear. No, you won't. Actually, I don't think there's records of people disappearing. But I don't know. People do get lost because there's a lot of miles of hiking trails.
Wow.
And if the ghosts are leading you astray, who knows where you'll end up?
Okay, this is incredible. I love this. And I also looked up Walden Pond because I'm like, I swear people bring their kids to Walden Pond. Why do I know Walden Pond? And yes, it is. It's where a lot of people in the area bring their kids to like walk out into the water and enjoy. But it's also where Henry Thoreau lived, Walden
Oh,
Pond. So there's Henry Thoreau.
oh,
The spirit of Thoreau might be walking amongst these trails and other spirits looking for booty as well.
booty, 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 hiding everywhere, hiding everywhere.
Hiding everywhere. Henry David Thoreau, show us your booty. Throw it over there. Throw it over there.
No one over there. Oh man, I would love to be the type of person who discovered buried treasure.
Ah,
Like how sick.
so sick. Also so stressful because it's like, do you have to hide it from everyone? Do, is it going to be confiscated from you if you tell people? Are you gonna be a target to be murdered if people
Mm,
know you have it? I guess it depends on what type of buried treasure, you know? Like, are you uncovering secrets or are you getting super wealthy? Because those two things, well, not always. I was going to say those things warrant different reactions, but not always because sometimes
yeah.
people don't want the hidden history to be unveiled.
Okay, so this is another reason I am obsessed with the deep ocean because think about how many ships have crashed or sunk or whatever has happened out in the ocean. The ocean is not only the biggest burial ground, it is also filled with treasure. Filled.
Filled. It's so spooky. And I'm obviously on conspiracy side of TikTok, and there's all these clips I keep saying, and I've done zero research to see if it's true or not. But basically, it was something about when there was this team of investigators who would spend a lot of time investigating things in the ocean, discovering things, researching things, and they came across almost like another ocean within the ocean where it was just highly dense and the saline was just it basically like wouldn't let their contraption go through it. Their robot
Mm,
was bouncing off of it. And so it just makes, I mean, regardless of if that's true or not, and if it is true, what that means, it just is so wild to me that there's so many things that we don't understand. You know, like the
I
where
love
the
it.
ocean floor like drops off and goes so significantly deeper that we today would never be able to see what's down there. Like, what the hell is there?
Send me in. Put me in, coach.
Put you in. Maybe you'll prove that the megalodon is real. Maybe that will be what you do.
See, I don't care about the megalodon at all. I want to find bones and treasure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's also making me think of the movie. Wow, why can't I remember it? I just recently watched. Oh, it was the most recent Black Panther movie. And there's this whole group of, I don't want to spoil it, but if anyone hasn't seen the most recent Black Panther, so there's basically these aquatic creatures, this variation, this mutant of human, and they live in the water. But specifically, they have this area within the ocean that is oxygenated. So they can, like regular humans, if you can get deep down and that far in, you could live there.
Oh,
It's like this
that's
bubble.
cool.
Yeah, it is very cool.
I like that. I can't imagine we have another story from Dungeon Rock, but I'm curious what listener story you pulled.
We don't have one from Dungeon Rock, but I picked something that I thought was appropriate to read for this episode.
Okay. I'm also so fidgety. Fidgety. I realized I can't sit still.
Oh, that was me last
It's
time
so hard.
or last night. I
No, but
really
it's
do need like a
always for
fidget
me.
spinner. That's honestly, I feel like sometimes when there's background noises and we tell Christina to cut them, it's usually me dropping something or like my hair clip or because I'm always touching something.
I'm always moving.
Okay. This is called A Weekend in the Appalachians. So
Oh,
I thought that was fitting because, the
it
Appalachian
is.
Mountains, they go all along the East Coast. You can hop on the
Mm-hmm.
Appalachian Trail up in Maine and head on down through Massachusetts to eventually get down to wherever it ends, Georgia, something like that. Okay. Okay, I have to correct myself. I just looked up Walden Pond again because I was like, Thoreau being in Lynn doesn't really make sense to me because I thought that I had already been where Thoreau had been because he lived in Concord, Massachusetts, I thought, and I had like gone and seen all that stuff. So I was like, what the heck is this? And apparently there's two Walden Ponds. So not the one
Oh,
in Lynn, the one in Concord, Massachusetts is Thoreau. I'm glad I looked that up because I was like, this doesn't make sense. I've been here, but in a different place, part of the state. Okay. Anyhow,
anywho,
Massachusetts is
usually we correct
confusing.
ourselves in later episodes, and we did it in the same episode. So that is a um
Yeah.
Step in the right
No
direction
one
for
has to
us.
correct me. I knew something was off about that. I did a little extra research.
You could
Okay,
feel it.
I could feel it. All right, so this is called A Weekend in the Appalachians. Hey girls, thanks in advance for letting me tell you this story. I've only told this to my partner and the girls that I was on vacation with, so maybe you have a better idea of what happened than we do. I have a spooky story from this summer when I went for a weekend with my two best friends in upstate New York in the Appalachian Mountains. When we were there, we went for 2 nights, and the first night, everything was normal. I got up there late. We had a fire in the yard, went to bed late, and then got up the next day to hike to the waterfall. Weird stuff started to happen the second night. I typically have trouble sleeping. I'm on sleep meds now, but at the time I wasn't. So I woke up around 3 to 4 a.m. I would usually wake up a few times in the night, so that wasn't too weird. And my friend and I were sharing a room, and they were in the other bed. I'm up for a bit, scrolling on my phone, when I start getting this weird feeling. I start to get scared, so I pull the covers completely over my head and I start hearing footsteps. The rooms were upstairs. It was a small cabin, so just stairs and 2 bedrooms on the second floor with everything else on the first floor. And the footsteps sounded like they were outside of the door. I tried to attribute it to the cabin maybe being old, or maybe it was because it was made of wood and it was being creaky, and I just tried to fall back asleep. Next, I feel and hear 3 loud bangs on the top right side of my headboard. At this point, I had taken my head out of the blankets because I was getting hot and I did not see anything in the room. I closed my eyes again and I lay completely still, hoping if something spooky was in there, maybe it would think I was asleep. I was terrified, and I
Oh,
know that doesn't really make sense. Then it feels like
no, that
it
does.
does, it does.
It's a tactic.
Then it feels like the bed is tilting, like someone was lifting it from that corner, but so smoothly, almost like when a cruise ship slowly rocks. And I rolled towards the side that felt higher and held onto my mattress. This subsided when I heard distinctly in my head and could see in my head, my eyes were closed, and I've never seen a ghost with my eyes, a young blonde boy, maybe aged 5 or 6, with curly hair standing to the left of my bed, who said, "Want to play?" I could feel him jump on the bed and jump 3 times. And while this was happening, I had the feeling of a man in a long coat standing up by the right side of the headboard, almost supervising. I have a feeling this man was the one who was lifting the bed, or made it feel like that anyway.
Oh.
Shortly after this subsided, and I felt safe enough to reach to the end table and take a Xanax I had in case I really can't sleep, all I wanted to do was fall asleep and for it to be morning. The next day, I
Yep.
asked my friends, one of them who was in the room with me, if they heard the banging, and neither of them did. I told them about what I experienced, and my friends are pretty spiritual, so they believed me, or think. The girl I was sharing a room with is into energies, etc., and she suggested that if I was tired, I may have been put in this space in between sleep and awake where it's easier to interact with spirits. So basically, like the astral plane. I was definitely awake, so this is possible, I suppose, especially if the house and land was haunted. Now, I don't know what I really experienced. I would love to believe that I was dreaming, but I was awake before it all started, scrolling on Twitter, very much not asleep. And I know it wasn't a dream because I was able to check the time, which you can't in dreams. I don't know if you've ever heard that. I do consider myself to be in tune with people's energies, and I trust my gut, but I've never had such active awareness and experience with something that may have been spirits. My little sister and my grandma have both seen ghosts before, but I've never seen or heard a spirit before, though I do get feelings sometimes, but never as clear as this. Okay, this is where things start to get weirder. We clean the cabin, follow all the rules, wipe down the counters, all the dishes in the dishwasher, all the sheets in the washing machine, everything normal. The next day, we get a message from the Airbnb host saying the kitchen was a disaster, which we knew it was not. Then came the strangest message. The host found deer legs in a drawer of one of the rooms. We're all vegetarians. We're not hunters. And nothing smelled while we were in there. To be fair, we didn't open some of the drawers because we were only there for 3 days, but it was in the summer, and we would have absolutely smelled some unrefrigerated deer legs in the bedroom. And the host clearly goes through everything after guests if she was going through the drawer then and didn't see anything before we arrived. To this day, no one has any idea how those deer legs appeared in the drawer. I kind of chalked this up to a weird experience and tried to forget about it because I couldn't explain it. And then months later, I finally download TikTok. I start seeing videos of weird, unexplained things in the Appalachian Mountains. But as far as I've read, they don't go into your house if you do the right things. Well, we didn't know about any of the lore before going, and we were hanging out late at night by the woods. We took a walk on the edge of the lake while the full moon was up and just spent a lot of time outside late into the night, going in and out of the house to grab snacks, a blanket, sometimes leaving the door open when we ran in. I wonder if we had taken proper Appalachian precautions, if everything would have been normal. But who knows?
Probably
Clearly not
not.
me. I'm just making my best guess, trying to make sense of the weird experience that I had that night. I think it was probably ghosts over whatever the mountain hides, but maybe there's a ghost in the mountains too. I have no idea. One thing I know for sure is I will not be going outside at night in the Appalachians ever again. Sending you love from New York City, Sarah.
Okay. I feel like throughout this whole email, Sarah is trying to rationalize everything that was happening. And I totally understand that because my mind first went to like, okay, is there someone who was kind of lurking in the Appalachian Mountains and the house was empty for a certain amount of time? Like, who knows? I wonder when the host came to the house and looked at it. Like, maybe there was a night between when they left and the host came. Did someone in the mountains like see that it was empty and like go in there, make a meal for themselves and made a mess? I don't know. But and I really want to know like what happened with the host. Like did the
Yeah,
host believe them?
I
Did
mean,
they get charged?
right, yeah, are they banned from Airbnb? I mean, I feel like this couldn't be the first time something odd has happened to the host, maybe, right? But it is so weird. And to your point, Sabrina, if there was someone just kind of hiding and lurking and fooling around with things, it reminds me of Gerald's Game a little bit. Did you ever watch that or read that? I think it's a Stephen King novel, isn't it? I watched the movie. Came out like 5 years ago. Basically, I'm gonna give you complete spoilers. But the basically what happens is there's a couple, they go to this cabin, they're having a little bit of sexy time. She gets handcuffed to the bed. The guy dies, has a massive heart attack, and she's chained to the bed. She feels like people keep coming in. She like sees this guy come in, she sees this dog come in like a wolf. She keeps seeing things come into the room, but she hasn't had water or food in days now. So she's fully thinking she's hallucinating. She sees this guy who's really scary looking, like cloaked, bald man come in and eat her husband, who's dead on the ground. Thinks it's a hallucination. It's not. She did see it.
Wait, now I want to watch this movie. My
It's
God, this sounds right up my
yeah,
alley. Gerald's Game.
Gerald's Game. You've got to watch it.
Okay, we were talking on Campfire Stories the other night or yesterday from when we were recording this about having a summer movie watch list.
Hmm.
This has to be
Okay,
on
we'll
there.
put Gerald's Game on. Here, I'm gonna add
Okay,
it to it.
great.
Then I'm gonna text it to myself.
Okay,
But
I
it
love
does
it.
make me wonder, especially like the deer legs. Like it just seems like such an odd, weird thing that someone else would. Maybe they thought that perhaps Sarah and Sarah's friends would open the drawer and they would get to witness the chaos that would ensue and the fear that would
Yeah.
come with finding that, but they didn't. And so the host did.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm curious and there's a lot of things about this story that I don't have answers to. And like kind of cute that it was a little kid jumping up and down on the bed like saying want to play and that there was a elder spirit kind of chaperoning, but it is super super creepy because we've talked about like just the words do you want to play is horrifying from a spirit, from a human, unless it's for we sports is
Unless
the
it's
only thing I
we.
want to play.
And do I think it's one thing if it's a little kid that's kind of just bouncing on the bed and then just runs off. It's another thing if you
Hmm.
feel this presence over you and feel the bed tilt and like know that whatever's happening is feels at the time more strong and powerful than you, and that's so scary.
Yeah.
Especially to have too,
So
like a duo. It's kind of like, where do you look? Because one thing is trying to get your attention, this little spirit of a boy, while something else is lurking a lot closer to you, right by the headboard. So it's like, is the kid trying to distract me from what's happening over here? What do you do?
we don't know.
Scary. Oh my God, Sarah.
I feel like so many people have had encounters in the Appalachian Mountains. So if you're one of those people, or if you've been to Dungeon Rock in Lynn, Massachusetts, or if you have any paranormal encounters or supernatural, just strange things happen to you, please email them to us at twogirlsoneghostpodcast@gmail.com.
And please rate and review us on iTunes, Spotify, subscribe, do all that stuff. Tell everybody about us. The
Yeah.
pyramid scheme is real and it works.
And join us on Patreon, where we go live every Tuesday for campfire stories and invite you, our listeners, to come share your stories live. And also, if you don't have stories, you can just come and enjoy everyone else tell their stories. We also have like fun events every month, paranormal news, lots of extra bonus content
Mm-hmm.
over there.
And social media, follow us on social media. We have a website, twogirlsonecoast.com, where you can subscribe and just check every once in a while too, because we're hoping to have more live shows. We had so much fun in Portland and New Brunswick. So it's on
Yes.
our bucket list for within the next year
Year.
to get a
Yeah.
few more. So head over there,
Join us.
stay in the know, love us forever,
Stay a
just like we love
while.
you. And thank you to Christina, who edits our podcast. There was a lot in this one, we'll be honest.
A lot of pee breaks.
Yeah.
Yeah. And technical
And
difficulties
brain
and just
malfunctions.
stumbling over words. Yes. So thank you, Christina. Thank you to all of you for listening. We love you.
And we will see
You
you
on
on the
the
other side.
side.
Very spooky.